Welcome to Line Change, a podcast about hockey, social issues, and change makers in the game we love. I'm your host, Ian Kennedy. Welcome to Line Change. I'm your host, Ian Kennedy, and today we are talking to PHF Commissioner Reagan Carey. Reagan helped guide the league through year 8. There's lots to talk about regarding the growth of women's hockey, in particular in the Premier Hockey Federation. Thanks for joining me, Reagan, and we're here to talk about the Premier Hockey Federation today and some of the amazing things that are happening in the growth of women's hockey across the globe and here in North America. And so you are the commissioner, the head honcho, the big boss, whatever you want to call this. You're in charge and responsible for a lot of what's been happening this year. I know you've been a driving force in making sure that the PHF has a proper platform and that the professionalism of the league itself continues to grow for the women involved. So I'm hoping that maybe you can just start by kind of running us through some of the amazing things that have been happening in the PHF this season and talking about some of the success stories that you've witnessed as the commissioner in your first season.
Thank you. I'd love to do that. As you just described that, I think that what's pretty unique about being part of the PHF is that we just have an army of people that feel that same responsibility. It's not a leadership by any title. Everybody from our board of governors to every level of our team staff, I think, feels that responsibility and that obligation and opportunity to just move this forward as fast as we can, but responsibly as well. So because of that, I think there's a lot to celebrate from this last season. And certainly the salary cap gets a lot of support in media and amongst the players, but that's just one piece of the puzzle. And there's a lot that goes into supporting players, and that's, medical benefits and also providing a platform where they can have exposure and for us to expose the league and the great competitive games that we have all season long. I think before I get into specifics of just this season, the PHF has been a trailblazer for a long time and haven't always got it perfect, as most startup leagues do not. And the fact that this league continues to find ways to make it through and navigate some of those hurdles, it's not an easy task to be a pro sports league, 8 seasons in and looking at a thriving opportunity ahead. So really proud to be part of it in this moment, but also acknowledge the fact that it was the first league to step up and really pay players. It was the first league to step up and say, we need better, we can do better, and try and find ways to do that. And it wasn't perfect, but we're looking to capitalize on the spirit of that. And this year had a lot of those. We answered the call of so many things, like mentioned medical benefits and providing just an increase in salary cap this year. Of course, we're doubling that next year, as you know, and just also the broadcasting, ESPN being a partner of ours. We haven't been able to watch a full season of women's professional ice hockey ever. And now you can. So all these hurdles and all these things that I've been part of women's hockey since I played street hockey and then turned that into playing hockey at an early age. So I have been part of the chorus of people asking for these things. So it feels really rewarding for us to be able to champion that and work with the NHL, be able to bring the Isabel Cup and play on NHL ice and celebrate the best of our league as a great finale. So lots of other little things to add to that, but those are some of the big pillars for us.
Absolutely. I was at the All-Star game this year in Toronto, and that event was really incredible to see from my standpoint, getting to witness not just the growth of the game, but the next generation of youth that were in the stands, all doing the unicorn celebration with Team World and all of the fun things that we got to see the kids doing there that showed that when they can see that representation and when they can see women playing at this level, the fandom is there, the market is there for these young kids to fall in love with the game, not just as youth hockey players, but as spectators and fans and consumers of the game. So I thought that that was a really uh, exciting opportunity to witness that growth firsthand. But there's, of course, there's still hurdles to be found. But as you said, you're in year 8 or just completed year 8. I think people often forget that the NHL has been around for over 100 years. A league like the WNBA, which is probably still, of course, we have the National Women's Soccer League coming up, but the WNBA is kind of the starting point for professional women's leagues in North America, and they've been around since 1996. So, probably a good chunk of the PHF weren't even born when the WNBA started playing, and
Right.
that's a testament to where this league's at already. So I'm excited to see what's coming next. I know that lots of other people were. Maybe you can just run us through the uh, a Toronto team finally winning a championship in hockey and seeing a professional sports championship come to the city of Toronto. Most people that know me and follow me would know that I'm not a huge Leafs fan. So I do take great pride and a little bit of twisted joy in getting to kind of stick that one back out there. But what did you see through? Because the Toronto Six are obviously a relatively new team. This was only their second team or second season in the league. They were the first ever Canadian team in your league, and I think that's significant. And I think that's a really important thing because obviously Canada loves hockey, and having a Canadian team win the Isabel Cup is a really important thing. So I'm hoping maybe you can kind of expand on that.
There's a lot of people that were excited to see that cross the border and get celebrated as it should, and just as recent as this past weekend, and in the celebration will continue, I'm sure, throughout the off season. I know Montreal is also focused on finding a way to probably steal that, but keep it in Canada. So just lots of great energy in that area, and I think it just demonstrates just how strong that competitive spirit is in our league. And we have great players coming in. We have great international players coming in. You mentioned the All Star game. It was a terrific environment for women's hockey on and off the ice across the whole weekend, and certainly I was very honored and proud to be part of that. One of my favorite moments was watching. We strongly believe in honoring the past pioneers and making the most of this moment we're in and inspiring the next generation, and to have kind of at that celebratory puck drop, the U18 Canadian women's team that had just won world championship at that U18 level be able to drop the puck alongside the captains of professional women's hockey with coaches that are legends in our sport, all in that same screenshot. That's what we're about building community, and nobody understands the history of hockey better than that Toronto area. And for this league to be able to grow and to establish itself in these key markets, let alone the areas we're growing into, it says a lot about the league, and it says a lot about the T6 and their dedication. They did a terrific job making sure that this team continued to excel this year. So and Shai Darkangelo is a captain. That's somebody I've had a lot of time to cross paths with over her national team career and all her efforts on that front. So just really proud to be able to hand that cup over and watch them celebrate.
It was really fascinating to see the different generations present at that event, whether it was at the Hockey Hall of Fame, the pre-celebration, and kind of the forum on women's hockey. In the crowd, you see Angela James and Geraldine Heaney and Sammy Joe Small walking around, and you've got these wonderful ambassadors for the game that have really truly been there since the beginning of this all. I know that Angela James and Geraldine both played in the 1987 unofficial World Hockey Tournament, which was held in Mississauga, so not too far from Toronto, basically part of Toronto, let's be honest, and not too far from Brampton, where the World Championships are held this year. And speaking of the world influence, I was excited to see someone like Fanny Gasparix from Hungary play in the PHF All Star game, because that was a player that I didn't know a lot about, and you don't necessarily think of Hungary as this hockey hotbed, but here you've got this player that steps into a PHF All Star game and is just a standout. And really, by the end of that day, I don't think that there was not a Fanny fan in the entire arena. And
You're right.
um, and then you've got Teresa Vanasova scoring the PHF championship goal in overtime for the Toronto Six and representing Czechia at the World Championships. So I saw an influx this year of talent from across the world, and the PHF seems to be that destination. Of course, we can talk about the other professional women in North America. The PWHPA, of course, has a lot of great players in there. However, the vast majority are Canadian and USA players, people that aren't from overseas, that are domestic players from North America. But the PHF has really done a great job in making a global professional hockey league for women. And I'm wondering if you can explain that to us. Maybe talk a little bit about uh, the focus on acquiring. I don't want to say acquiring, recruiting. That's a better word. Acquiring sounds like a player, somebody's property, but recruiting the best talent from these other countries, and maybe some of the more non-traditional countries like Hungary or wherever else we're getting players from. But I know that seeing the Chechen team have multiple players. There's pretty much a PHF player on uh, every team in the world right now, and that's so exciting to see. So maybe you can just run us through the global growth of the PHF as well.
Definitely, it's something we're very focused on, and there's a reason for that. And I'll even back up a little bit, mentioning Angela James and just kind of the history of women's hockey and all these kind of pivotal moments along the way. Having the Olympic Games in 1998, that being first, Colleen Coyne's part of the PHF. That's somebody I watched as a hero for women's hockey, be able to win a gold medal and just make women's hockey matter in a different way than it had just right before that Olympic Games. So, when we look at just how much advancement can happen in a sport in a short amount of time, we look at this 20 years. What the next 20 years will look like is just going to be incredible. Just how much growth there's been in Division One hockey, and how much growth there's been just in the international game. But I mention this because it's really important, and I think we are very lucky to have the experience we have in our front office. Mel Davidson, Lisa Haley, these are people that have not just dedicated their lives to the sport, but growing the global game. And when the Olympics, you well know, and there's been summits in your area about how do we close the gap. It's just only US and Canada, and should it even be an Olympic sport? I mean, that was a very real conversation up until the last 8 years. And that didn't just evolve into the way it happened. People went to work to make sure they closed the gap, and to make sure that there was really meaningful advancements so that the global game could grow. And Mel Davidson was one of the leaders of that. We all spent time going to her high performance camps that she created with the IHF, and contributing to growing the game, because again, it's a community. We all have to work together to move the game forward. So we're all very well versed in understanding just how much talent is out there, and really being in these different countries. And U18, the growth of that world championship allows you to see that even earlier. So all these things matter, all the experiences and the leadership we have. Lisa Haley will be happy to hear your comments about Hungary, knowing her coaching experience there and trying to contribute to growing the game. So it all comes together when we're in that office. It's not hard to understand why we came up with a U.S. versus Canada versus world format for All Stars when you got that kind of background in our office. But it just demonstrates the strength of the game, and it gets to highlight different player pools that we might not have seen if it was a little bit more of a traditional format. So all those things lead to a lot of relationships on that international level, and I think trust and belief in where the PHF is headed. So we're really excited to open our doors to all the talent around the globe.
Yeah, it is a very talented game across the globe. I was so excited this year at the U18s to see Nila Lapusinova from Slovakia do everything that she was able to do in the game. And obviously, she'll be coming to North America next year to play some high school prep hockey. And I'm sure that there will be an NCAA loop around more than the block, probably right around the nation, to try and get her services at a school. But I think that when we see those moments and you see media have this aha moment that yes, the women's game is exciting, and and I don't want to say that in a demeaning way because I obviously love women's hockey, but the average person seems to have this idea that there's something lacking from the game. And I think it's a misunderstanding because the games are played in slightly different ways. Much like people say that the NBA is played above the rim and the WNBA is played below the rim. And of course, that's not true because we've seen women in the WNBA that can dunk and things like this. It doesn't happen every game, but it's there. And when you saw Lapis Nova from Slovakia do the Michigan goal, that was something where I think that it really caused a lot of those men in the game to stop and say, "Wow, that I didn't know," and that's a great moment. It's a learning opportunity. It's a teaching moment that um, we can look at it and see that yes, this is hockey, just like the hockey that everyone else watches in the NHL, and maybe we should start watching women's hockey because there are very exciting moments there. There are very skilled athletes, and the game is a little bit different. But you see uh, the broadcast numbers from those gold medal games, and you see that it's tremendous. There's a huge crowd there, and I think as you grow into Toronto and Montreal and places like this, those more traditional hockey markets, the original six from the NHL, and it becomes now we're at the original seven in the PHF. I think that growth is going to continue to really expand, and I'm excited to see it. I know that I was um, part of the conversation with you and Frank Cervalli with the Professional Hockey Writers Association this year to build some media partnerships there in terms of getting a vote for the PHF's Most Valuable Player Award. And I think that all of these steps are really going to help broaden that understanding of the unique brand of hockey that's played in the PHF and in the women's professional game in general. And speaking of, now I'm not going to put you on the spot too much, but speaking of the Toronto Six and the Montreal Force, I know you promised that you would announce the next expansion location right now to me. Um, no, okay, but if the league is still eyeing it, which I know the league is still talking about expansion, the original plan was to go two teams last year. It turned into one. I think that was a brilliant idea because, of course, the focus is doing things well, not fast. And but perhaps you can just discuss uh, the idea of expansion and or talk about what the league's thoughts are on that moving forward still.
Yeah, well, I'd love to announce that, but how about we do that in when we're a little bit more ready to announce that. We'll make a plan to
Sounds
do it
good.
with you. But
Okay.
I think you're right. We have to be responsible, but also continue to move quickly. And we did that with Montreal. I mean, I had the opportunity to get up to speed very quickly, and it was a no brainer. It always comes down. If you look at the PHF ownership, everything has had the opportunity to change here in this new era, and it's the right people for the right time, and making sure that we continue that getting that community in the right place. So it becomes really about people, obviously resources and the finances to support that for not just this moment in time, but for the long haul. All of that matters. And, it's just really encouraging. If we were to have this conversation the same time last year, I would have been making calls to see who was interested in supporting and investing in a serious way. That we always have, a decent amount of support, but there wasn't, a flood of calls coming our way of how can we get in the game. And thanks to the backdrop of women's pro sports in general, along with the advancements that we've been able to make in a short period of time, this whole enthusiasm and interest in people coming our way and expressing that they want to be part of this and they want to get on board is really just encouraging and exciting. So we have a lot of due diligence to do. There's a lot of great options out there the more we explore, and I think it also it helps to have on both sides of North America here with our understanding of the volunteer group that's really essential in women's hockey, being able to understand the grassroots of hockey that exists in a lot of these markets. And some of them are in, prime NHL markets, and some of them aren't. But when they have those strong community ties and they're really willing to do the work to help grow the game with us, that's where we want to be. And we're going to see the needle move forward faster for us. So I have no announcements today, but I do have a lot of great meetings and conversations that are very, far down the line in this category. And you'll be happy to know Canada is strongly in that category. A lot of investor conversations, and then Midwest as well. And DC is always on our radar too. So just a lot of great energy and a lot of great opportunities for us to grow.
Yeah, there absolutely are. I mean, I'd love to see so many different locations, but you see the growth of the women's game happening from coast to coast, whether it's uh, a sold out crowd watching the rivalry series in Seattle, or it's the U16 San Diego
Yeah.
women's team winning a national title. Like we're talking top corner to bottom corner. And then we come across and, we've got the PHF on the East Coast, and it really is growing. And you go into the Midwest and there's wonderful programs there. Some of the greatest players of all time, like the Cami Granados, came right out of the Midwest. And it really, I don't think you can exclude any conversation in any section of the country as a spot where women's hockey is viable. It's just shifting the lens on what it means to be a sports fan,
Mhm.
and the whole equity picture of understanding the growth in the women's market. Looking at the National Women's Soccer League, what they've done recently with crowds and the expansion costs just to buy a team there. Um, that's a huge sign. I don't think that we'd be talking about $50 million in a soccer league in North America for women if investors didn't see financial gain and a market there. It's too much money just to play with. And I know that if I had that money, I would be investing in women's sports right now too, because I don't think there's ever been a better time to do that than right now. And looking at the equity portion of the growth of the PHF, the growth of women's hockey, obviously you've talked a little bit already about healthcare, about the salary cap doubling. So putting that in the millions of dollars now instead of the hundreds of thousands, which goes a long way towards allowing women to be full-time professional athletes. And I think that's been the goal forever. It hasn't been, this is not a new topic where, I think that everybody, when they saw women making five, six, $7,000 a year, looked at it and thought, there's no way, this is never going to happen. And now we have Daryl Watts signing for $150,000 a season, um, and other players, that are going to be probably tapping into that six-figure range in this off season, if not making nice, livable five-figure salaries and quitting their other jobs and becoming hockey players. They've always been hockey players, but becoming their only job as a hockey player. And that's an exciting moment. And I'm wondering, in terms of enticing players, in terms of recruiting players, how this is going to impact. Because I know that I think I was a little oblivious even, and I follow women's hockey quite a lot, to the different talent levels globally and in North America. I know that when I looked at the Montreal Force lineup this year, I saw that they had probably the most ex PWHPA players that had made the jump over to the PHF this season. And I thought, wow, they're going to wipe the floor with everybody. Um, and then you realize, well, there's not the disparity that a lot of people perceive between one group of professional women's hockey players and the other doesn't really exist depth wise.
Mhm.
It might exist in the Mary Philippe Plans of the world, but um, it doesn't exist that far down. Because to say that Lauren Gable is that much worse than anyone that's playing on Team Canada is false. And to say that all of these other women that are playing in the international level are not some of the best in the world is also false. And we saw that Becca Gilmore made Team USA this year. So we finally got that PHF member that cracks that armor of the stranglehold that the PWHPA had. And I think that your salary cap and the gains that you made last year are going to continue that process where we get these Patty Kazmaier winners, um, like the Daryl Watts of the world, signing up to be PHF members. And I'm wondering if what your thoughts on that are, what your experience and what you've seen in the conversations between the PHF, what you know from different ownership groups and different general managers, what's happening since you made that salary cap announcement?
Mhm. No, great question. I appreciate that. I'll just start with maybe a little bit of a outside thought here, but I remember very distinctly. I heard a number of years ago Arthur Blank, owner of the Atlanta Falcons in the NFL, speak about just how his players are the stakeholders. They can go play anywhere, and he has to create the best environment and a place that they want to come, not because they're contractually obligated to be there or for any other reason other than they want to play for that organization. And it resonated with me just so much. And that's how we look at the PHF, regardless of what's happening, whether there are or are not other options that suit players. We want to be the place they choose to come because they know they're cared for. We're continuing to move the needle in the right direction, not just for their own benefit, but for the league and the sport globally. And I think players want to be a part of that. They want to be part of something bigger than themselves. They want to be connected to a mission. But it's also important for us to ensure that that experience isn't just for a handful of players. It isn't just for one particular team that has different resources. It's for everybody on that roster. So we take a look at that consistently and evaluate that. And again, we have a lot of room to continue to grow, and those resources don't just come in compensation from a salary standpoint. They come in the support of athletic trainers, the support of strength and conditioning coaches. All these players want to get better. They want to be the best they can be. So all the things we can surround them with, and being full-time hockey players, as you said, is we're working to close that gap faster than it should be closed. We want to see that future meet us here in short order and not just wait for the evolution of that to happen. And I think you see that by our actions with the salary cap. And we just know that it's important for those players and it's important for the game. And we can get there. There's so many people that want to support women's hockey, and we're just trying to bring them all into the fold and make sure we get there faster. So it's really important to us to make sure we're the best home for women's professional ice hockey globally. And the more we put into that player experience, the more it benefits our fans and the entertainment factor, because our players are working harder and competing harder than anybody out there. So, we're just really proud of the environment and the players that choose the PHF.
I think I had this conversation with John Boyton at the All-Star weekend where we were talking about what happens when the salary cap expands, where league games can now be played during weekdays and teams can travel during the week because they don't have to go to work and then go to practice later at night, and practices can happen during the day and training sessions can happen during the day, and markets can expand to farther away because travel time becomes accessible then, without impacting the everyday lives of the athletes. And that's a really crucial point. And I think it does speak to the rapid acceleration of the salary cap as an equitable um, opportunity. Obviously, I really liked what the PHF did in a number of things, and one of the key ones that sparks in my mind is just the league's name. I think it's a really simple example where the PHF didn't put the word women's in the title as this gender identifier that others the sport and the league. And I know that other leagues have done that, but we see it all the time with where the women's world championship is called the women's world championship, but the men's world championship is just called the world championship. Even on the IHF website, on the IHF website, we've got the world championship and we've got the women's world championship, and that language is very important. And having the PHF just be the premier hockey federation, not the premier women's hockey federation, I think personally is a huge step forward where, we don't see the National Women's Hockey League and the National Hockey League. We just have the PHF. So that rebranding I thought was fabulous, and I thought went a long way towards achieving these ultimate goals where we get rid of this othering of the women's game and it becomes something that is really inspiring where, the little girl looks at it and says, this is the top league in the world, and doesn't say this is the top league in the world for women. It's the top league in the world for their mindset and their goals and their dreams. And that is such an inspiring thing, where I hope that it continues to grow. And I think the PHF is doing a wonderful job doing that. Now, to close out our conversation, you're in charge. You're the commissioner. If you look 10 years down the road at this right now, and we're not talking about year 8, we're talking about year 18, or even farther, like you said, from 1998 onward, if we were to double that time frame, and we're talking about the PHF another 25 years down the road, where is it in your ultimate goal, your utopia of women's hockey? Where does this end up?
Oh, there's so many things, and I would say I can't predict it because where we are now with $1.5 billion salary cap in 2023 is not what anybody would have put on this lineup this quickly. So I have no doubt that whatever I'm about to say will get surpassed in that time frame. But I see us having preseason in Europe. I see us having just a robust east to west North America number of teams, and just having just a thriving fan base that's cheering this on. I envision little boys and little girls knowing the names of all these players and, wearing those jerseys with pride, which already happens, but just at a magnifying level. And making sure that women's hockey, we've seen the rise of the WNBA and the work that's taken and where that is now. And same with women's soccer, that started in the 90s and probably before that, but certainly had that moment in the 90s that really set the stage for what is happening now. And I think in large part, we'll be doing the same for what will become, the next premier sport for women's professional sports. So I can't wait to see what it looks like when Erica Holst, we brought her in, from Sweden, who's just a legend in that area from an Olympic standpoint, came in and helped with our coaching during the All-Star as a guest coach. And we went to a Toronto Maple Leafs game the night before with some of our players to acknowledge them and recognize them at the Leafs game. And we said in 10 years, this is what a PHF game is going to look like. A packed house, lots of energy there early, and being able to, have a platform to do even more. So we have a 10-year marker for that. So I'll report back around that time.
That's great. I hope that, I know because of the discussions of how avid and committed women's hockey fans are, that we also won't see those lower bowl seats of the corporate seats be empty for the first half of the first period in that future PHF game. So I am thrilled. I'm thrilled to have got this opportunity to speak to you. I'm thrilled to see the progress of the PHF, and I believe in this women's game. I believe in the league, and I think that it's only headed in great ways. And I'm excited, just like you, to see that 10 years and 20-year mark down the road where hopefully at that point I'm a slightly less grumpy old sports writer that takes a little less heat because I get to talk about something that I love, which is women's hockey. So thank you, Reagan, for joining me, and I appreciate everything you do for the sport.
Yeah, thank you. And same to you. Really appreciate you championing and spotlighting women's hockey. You do it very well, and you're very knowledgeable and informed about the game, the history of it, and where it's headed. So we can't keep moving forward without supporters and teammates like yourself. So really appreciate it.
That was A Line Change. I'm your host, Ian Kennedy, and thanks to my guest today, Reagan Carey, the Commissioner of the Premier Hockey Federation. There's a lot to be excited about in the growth of the women's game, both internationally and here in North America. I know I'm excited to see what happens next in the PHF in year 9. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you again next week.